you go.
So yeah, Nepti wasn't a particularly tough boss, just one that took me a while to take down. A lot of hitting with a lot of long distance spells, and yeah, she falls down. You get the water jewel from her, and then you head on back to the boat, and you take that on over to, I believe it'll take you over to Limeland. I believe is the next destination.
Yeah, you actually have to go back to Larapol, obviously.
Right.
With
yeah.
all that, and then Dondoran Castle, but I believe Dondoran. When you go back to Dondoran Castle, I think that's where you get all the spirits in the different hidden way. There's like bookcases you can move.
I remember there being like a weird one, that doesn't show up like early on in the game, but it shows up like after you beat a certain boss.
Yes.
And then you can go all the way back to the Dondoran Castle, and you can find like a bookcase that you can actually like push, and then you find it. It was really weird and very. I don't know how they expected people to find this, honestly.
Right.
Because why would you go all the way back there just to look for something after this particular point? I don't really know. But basically online, I found out about that one randomly, and was glad that I did, because hey, more spirits means more fun casting spells.
Exactly. So yeah, why not take advantage of that for sure?
Yeah.
And then so then when you're done, then you go to West Karma.
Yep.
Which you're still in, obviously. And then,
Right.
You're right, East Limeland, which is a new area.
Right.
Okay.
So you take the ship, and at this point in the game, like the ship that you can go into alternates through different areas when you ride it. So you ride it, I think, a couple times, and it gets you over to East Limeland eventually. Drops you off in that new area. So again, it's basically kind of the same with like the Holy Plains, things like that. It's a big open area where you run into enemies, and it basically you walk down this area trying to get to Limeland, the actual town of Limeland, which has so many spirits and so many items in there. It's kind of crazy. Just a big town.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the Limeland is the kind of rich town, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Very big, very well-to-do.
Yes.
The pub there has the Red Wings. You can get not the team, but and you can use that to go back to the town, which is kind of a nice thing to have. So again, with any town, especially Limeland, it's good to make sure that you stop at the pub and grab those wings that you can use to jump towns if you have to go in between. In fact, when you were going back to Dondoran to get that very obscure spirit, using those yellow wings to get there makes it a lot quicker.
And that'll bring you into the Barragoon Tunnel.
Yes. So the Barragoon Tunnel is a big old area, and it's interesting because it's one where you keep going through, and I was actually very surprised through this stage. I did not expect it to be as long as it was, and I definitely did not expect there to be a boss at the end of it. That surprised me, especially because it's the first boss you face in this game that doesn't give you like one of the gems or anything. So when I first ran into this boss, I thought I was going to get the fire gem or whatever it was going to be called at this point. I was surprised and fought a boss that gave me a lot more grief than I was expecting it to. I'm talking, of course, about Shilf. So, what are your thoughts of the Barragoon Tunnel?
Can you refresh my memory on, was it a... was this the one where it was... What were some of the enemies that were in this one?
This enemy has a lot of, like, kind of... ghostly like enemies. It has the Will-o'-the-Wisp.
Will-o'-the-Wisp, okay.
The sprites, and then
I
think there's just an enemy that's called Ghost in there too, actually.
Yes, I do know the bear. Okay. I think this was the cave one, like the minor one you go
right
through. Okay.
So this is
that
the one,
sense.
before you get, because I think the dungeon after this is the Boil Hole, so this would be the one that's kind of like the connecting in that way.
I do remember this one. This is a tough, very, very tough dungeon. This is probably the last time I truly had real difficulty in this game. Where it was I was dying all the time. I died a lot in here. Those Will-o'-the-Wisps, oh my gosh, they do a ton of damage.
They do. They make you want to pull your hair out.
They do.
And I know I died several times during this too. But yeah, it's a long one. You keep running into these dang Will-o'-the-Wisp enemies, and even the sprites can be kind of annoying. So you face, and there's not like a big variety of enemies, so it means that you're running into the same enemies a lot. So this one can be a little mind-numbing at times, just trying to get through the damn thing.
Yeah.
And then when you finally get to it, there's this big kind of strange room you go into where the boss is. It's like an open room, but there's also like a kind of a pit in between. So like to get to the boss, you would kind of have to walk a weird way around to get to them. Again, a lot of times it's better not to be up close anyways, but it makes it trickier to dodge some of the attacks. So in this big room, there's a shelf in the middle, and then like this kind of pit in between. So I didn't really know what to do at first, because I was like, maybe I'll be better if I fight her close up. Maybe I'll be better if I fight her further away. Shilp has 1,000 hit points, so by far, anyone that's noticed, the hit points keep going up, and she's got by far the most of anyone so far. And Shilf is kind of a pain in the butt. I know a lot of people that I've seen online and everything, so they did not have issues with her. She killed me at least twice, and it's a long walk back through the dungeon.
Yeah, it is.
And I know she's a wind element, and I'm a wind element too, so that didn't help. But
Right.
I think my biggest problem is that I just could not dodge any of her attacks. Like, the homing arrows that she would shoot out, I could not dodge those things. And so it became a battle of me shooting stuff at her and her shooting stuff back at me. Just wind attacks going left and right. And I ran out of healing items a couple times. And the third time, when I finally got there, I believe I just barely defeated her. I had like almost no healing items left, but she finally went down, and I was very happy. But yeah, she was tough for me, but I know a lot of people didn't really have much issue with her, and I'm gonna guess you probably didn't either.
I didn't. Earth elements again. I used that
earth.
Just smashes wind pretty good in this
Absolutely.
game. At least it seems like it.
Yeah.
So, didn't have any issues. I took a lot of damage, but yeah, it was a lot of healing. That helps. And yeah, I beat her first try. But I did die in the Baragoon Tunnel from the Will-O-Wisps.
Yeah.
Or the Will-O-Wisps. They killed me quite a bit. Those things do a ton of damage to you.
They do.
Like 100 hit points at a time.
And it'd be like those ones where you're trying to get like in a fight with them, sometimes just trying to like trade blows, and then of course you start missing.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is about this game, but it feels like once you start missing, you just keep missing.
You keep going, yeah.
And
or if you get them down to like a little bit, and they get you down to a little bit, you really have to ask yourself, should I chance it?
Yeah.
Should I chance it? Because if I miss, I'm dead.
And I feel like physical attacks seem to do that more than regular attacks. I don't know what it is, but
it's just the way the system kind of works itself out.
Brian doesn't have good hand-to-eye coordination when it comes to swinging a big wooden staff, but whatever. So yeah, you beat Shelf, and like a lot of enemies in the game, they're basically, like Shelf says when she sees you, you know, how she's, you know, oh, you did all this, blah, 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 now I'm gonna, you know, take all of, all the stones you've collected and everything. So, you know, she's melodramatic in that way, but when she's done, you still have to go through a little bit more of the Baragoon Tunnel to get finally through and into the next big area, the Din Dum Dries.
Din Dum Dries,
yes,
kind of a
desert
area.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is actually a really cool area. A lot of cool enemies, a lot of enemy battles where I feel like I would have to be healing a lot in between. Not that I ever felt like it was overwhelming, but the enemies there can take out a lot of big chunks of your health, so it's a good area to level up. They have a little area right outside there, a little tent that you can go in and heal and save. So good area to do a little bit of grinding if you need to.
You can also, if you were paying attention to the storyline, there were people that were talking about a lost city.
Absolutely.
And you find it, and it's called Shamwood.
Yes, which is an interesting name for a town.
Yeah.
It's an area that is very easy to miss in the game. It's kind of almost like a secret giant city that shows how it was kind of ravaged in the past by the Eltail book and just kind of destroyed their whole city, their whole possible civilization. So you find a little area in the desert that has a little teleporter that you can go onto, and it'll send you to this other town. And this place has tons of spirits, and probably like 10 spirits in there, all littered around the town. So this is like a jackpot if you're looking for spirits.
Yeah.
And a lot of items too. And there's
tons of items.
Oh my gosh!
That's why you want to go there. You get a ton. And there's even one that was like a glitch to get to.
Yes.
I had to look. If it was a glitch.
I had to look that one up. Right by the entrance.
Yes, right by the entrance. It's like hard to get to, but it's like an invisible maze. You have to or a visible
wall. And you have to walk. You have to go back and forth until for some reason the game lets you go through it eventually.
Yeah.
And then you have to walk all the way around to get back. But it's one of those cases where crazy. I'm like, wow, how did this? Yeah, so just bizarre. And at the end of that stage, kind of in the middle of the city, there's this one weird looking sorcerer guy named, I think his name was Lavar or something like that. Which I don't know, but he just basically tells you the story of what happened with the Eltail book there and how the city was cursed and why they're stuck in this whole other area. And basically, the only way to free him and to save their civilization is to defeat Mammon, who's the big bad guy that we've heard alluded to. So once you get all your stuff there, you got all your items and all your spirits, and you're feeling pretty good at this point, then you can return to the tent, rest if you need to, and then get ready to go on through the desert to get to the town of Greenock. I'm sorry, not the town of Greenock. What is Greenock again? I remember it as an area, but I'm trying to remember if there's an actual... Oh, that's right. It's like a town that was destroyed. So there's actually a couple buildings you can go into.
Yeah.
But most of it's just been completely ravaged and destroyed. So that's why I'm is it a
It's
town?
kind of a cool, interesting concept to it. Yeah. And that brings us to our favorite level.
The Boil Hole. Which, by the way, is one of the strangest names for a dungeon in any game I've played.
A bunch of boils.
Yeah, Boil Hole everywhere.
So Boil Hole, it's a really long level.
Yes.
Really long. But I actually had... There was some enemies that were actually kind of easy.
Yes.
Was he called Rocky Jr.?
There was Rocky, yeah.
Okay. Rocky I had no problem with, but then when you bring the red worm in there,
and it was
Wyvern, yeah.
Yeah, because those guys tend to have a lot of hit points, too, so it could take a long time to take them down.
Those Wyverns are just...
yeah.
They hurt. And this one, oh, man. But the Boil Hole, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was long.
Yeah, it was a long dungeon.
Yeah, it was.
And then when you get through it, and I feel like I didn't have much issue with getting turned around finally. At this point, I finally...
kind of figured out the system, yeah. And a lot of it is going from one side on a narrow path, and you're kind of through this big, hole, basically.
Right. A boil hole.
A boil hole, yeah. Yeah, so it's not too hard to get turned around here. It's pretty straightforward, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you get to the end of it, you go into kind of a big room, and there is some random dude hanging out in the middle of the room. And this guy is Fargo, who is the boss of this stage, weighing in at a healthy 1,500 hit points. He has a lot of hit points, and I think that was the main thing that I remember from him, because I didn't find him to be a particularly hard boss for my character, but it just took a long time to take him down.
Yeah.
So I just kind of peppered him with a lot of the different wind spells, hitting him with the wind cutters, and then the large cutter spell sometimes too, which if I got a direct hit could do over 100 damage. So it was nice, but I had to heal a lot because just a lot of back and forth.
I did Rock Throw 3 quite a bit. I did Avalanche. I mixed it up. I did Earth quite a bit, but yeah, I survived. His hits weren't hard because I could heal quite easily on him.
I was going to say, I felt like even when he would do damage, it wouldn't be enough to really negate my healing, so I didn't have to worry too much. And once he went down, I was happy because I got the Fire Ruby, the last of the gems of the elements. So if you've been paying attention, you've collected the Earth Orb from Silvering, the Wind Jade from Zelsi, the Water Jewel from Nepti, and the Fire Ruby from Fargo. So you have all 4 now, which is important because they allow you to open up a barrier to get to that Mammon guy at some point.
Yeah, and you go to your last town.
You do. The beautiful town of... Brannock Town.
Yep.
You go through an area called Barragoon Moor, which is kind of like your last big open area.
Yep.
A lot of different enemies there.
Barragoon Moor is interesting too because if you want to, there's a lot of cool different landscapes.
Yes.
Finding spirits is interesting here too.
Oh, absolutely.
So, it's pretty cool. And then you go into the town.
Yes.
Last town, so you save and whatnot, talk to the people, and
you can get black wings here at the bottom.
You can.
I don't know where you would use them, but you can have them because you can't use them in dungeons. But yeah. I don't know. I keep selling. I keep
the wings.
Selling on the wings.
Then you go into Branach Castle or Brannock Castle.
Brannock Castle, yeah.
This castle was pretty cool.
It was. Mm-hmm. I like the design of it. There's not a lot of different enemies in this part of the game. You keep fighting red rose knights and white rose knights.
Yeah.
And they're not particularly like crazy tough by any means. They're actually kind of funny because I've had issues where like some of the staircases they would get in each other's way.
Yes, yeah, they can't do anything.
And all they could do is keep trying to raise their defense or evade, and then I'm like, okay, well I'm just gonna hit you with pot shots until you're gone.
Right.
But it's cool. It's a very large castle, a lot of really cool areas that you can go through. There's of course spirits and items galore all over the place, and it's good to make sure you get a lot of those items. Especially some of those healing items like the spirit lights, big healing potions, things like that. Because when you get into these, last boss battles coming up, you're gonna need the healing.
yeah, you really are. And the Brannock Castle, there's a lot of different, treasure chests you can find, spirits,
Absolutely.
whatnot. Also, you're gonna run into a few people.
Yes, a few familiar
talk
faces.
To. Yep. So I guess let's talk about the. Do we find out the kind of? No, we don't find the twist the first.
We have not found the twist just yet.
The first boss, you do not.
Yes.
So let's talk about the first boss, which is
Guilty. Looks like a giant kind of weird looking monster kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
He almost made me think of like Blanca from Street Fighter or something.
Yeah, it's good description.
And thank you. Yep. And he's interesting. He's one of only 2 bosses in the game that apparently it does not have an element associated with him. So he does a lot of fire attacks, but apparently he's not considered to be fire elemental. So he's not weak to water specifically. I don't know why he's named Guilty. I'm not sure exactly what he's been up to, but he actually was a very long fight for me. I mean, he does have 1,800 health, so he has a lot of hit points.
You and me both.
Yes. Yeah. It was a lot of hit him, run away.
Yep.
Because you don't want, again, like almost every boss in the game, if not every boss in the game, you don't want to be getting hit by his close attacks. You want to, deal with the far away ones because you can avoid the far away ones. Mm-hmm. His like kind of earth attack is the one he does when you're further away, and then up close he does like this big fire or like cloud attack. So basically, that's what it came down to. Hit him with my spell, run away. Hit him with my spell, run away.
Oh, gosh. And he used up all my items practically in this battle. It was hit and run. Don't
Absolutely.
And every time you hit him, you're like, are you kidding? He's not dead yet.
Yes.
It just keeps on going and going.
You're just like, come on, I don't want to use all my items, but I feel like I have to.
Yeah.
Too.
He may have not been the toughest boss.
Yeah.
But, well, he probably would be the toughest boss. But
yeah,
he was definitely the longest boss.
Yes.
Boss battle.
It's a total battle of attrition, just trying to outlast him.
It was maybe 15, 20-minute battle.
Right.
I mean, it was insane.
Yeah, and you have to keep like circling around the area because you don't want to get too close. Because if you do, then he can hit you with that big fire damage up close with that cloud attack. So eventually, mercifully, he goes down.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing.
Yeah, thank God. Oh,
yeah.
Long battle, though. Prepare for it.
Yeah, so then once you defeat him, you go a little bit further, and then you actually will run into, interestingly enough, our good friend, or is she, Shannon. And you will learn that kind of the M. Night Shyamalan twist there.
Yeah.
That this person that you thought was helping you and doing everything, when you were in, hopefully helping you get along, was just kind of setting you up along. She's basically a servant of Mammon. Kind of keeps saying that she's like a soulless puppet. She says a lot. For some reason, that becomes like her catchphrase. But then lets you know that she is there just to try to get you there, so that You can get Mammon sprung free, and yeah. So she's there, and telling you that you have to keep going forward. So, which we're gonna do anyway. So.
Right.
She's got like, I can't remember if the character that she's with is.
It was very strange.
Is like a brother to Brian or what? But some like knight or something there that was that's with Shannon that's been like defeated and can't do anything but wants to try to stop her. But I don't know exactly what the deal is. Basically, she says you got to go forward to save your father and whichever the guy was that's there with
Yeah, this part was kind of strange.
Yeah, I'm like, that part I kind of missed, like, the idea of exactly what was happening there.
Right.
Like, I obviously understand that she was in a position of power over that character. She had kind of done her heel turn, if I could use a pro wrestling term.
Yeah, she did.
And told us that we had to keep going because the king, I don't know if it's Bigis, Bigibus, I don't know. I'm going to say King Bigis, I don't know.
Yeah.
So he's waiting around the corner, and he is the next boss who's pretty much immediately after this.
Yep.
You face him in a big room, and King Bigis has a little bit more health than Guilty, if that's even possible. Mm-hmm. He has 1,900 hit points, and he does have an element. He is fire. So again, if you're heavy on water, that's awesome.
Keep in mind, after you beat Guilty 2, you level up a ton.
Oh, that's a good point.
So this battle against King Bigis is not as bad as the one against Guilty, because you level up so well.
Exactly. Much. I think I went up like 30 hit points in between that.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. And when you face King Bigis, he is a weird kind of enemy in that it doesn't necessarily really seem to matter how close you are to him. He seems to alternate between his two attacks regardless. Mm-hmm. So unless you really feel like you want to get close to him because you want to start hitting him with your staff,
right?
You can just kind of stay where you came in and just start blasting him with spells.
Yep.
He is tough, but not anywhere near as long of a battle as Guilty.
No.
Yeah.
No, and usually you can. Well, with me, I use the environment to my benefit because you're on more of a narrow path. He's kind of up on steps, and you're kind of down. So I just did a lot of ranged attacks and hope they hit. Yeah. And he does a lot of range to you, and it might hit, it might not. Right. But you have time to heal, and his attacks aren't as damaging as Guilty's were. At least I thought.
And I was gonna say that a lot of, and there's really not a ton of strategy in this case with King Bigis as far as you're just trading attacks. Yep. And I feel like he has certain attacks that seem to miss a good amount, which is nice.
They do.
Like that laser attack that he does seems to miss often enough, so that helps.
Yep.
So I was able to eventually take him down. He put up a long fight, not as long as Guilty.
Yeah.
But thankfully he goes down, and it's nice. And at first I thought he was the final boss of the game when I first fought him.
You would think so.
I was not expecting there to be yet another little segment here.
Yeah.
But there is.
There is.
So once you take out the king, you go up top on like this roof area, and there you meet Shannon yet again. Again, she just came to tell you, yep, she's a soulless puppet. She likes to tell you that. Then she actually, in a twist of fate here, gives you the Altail book that you've been searching for this whole game. Basically, she's telling you that you need it, though, and the stones that you got to go up to the top and to go into this teleporter that takes you into the world that Mammon, the big bad guy, the real string puller behind all of this, to go find him, to put him down for once and for all. So you go into this area called the Floating Monastery, and you're in the final stretch of the game now.
Yeah, the Floating Monastery is very cool. One of the coolest visually looking levels you're going to get, obviously, for the finale. It almost seems like you're in a dream state.
Absolutely.
There's different lighting on the whole thing.
Yeah.
Every time you go into a different area or room, it's just completely think Alice in Wonderland, crazy looking level and stuff.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
Yeah, there's areas where you go through a door to go into a room and be like, I don't know where to go, and then you go out the same door and it takes you to a whole different area than the one you came in through. So it's pretty amazing.
That's the one part that's really crazy is you go into a house or a little what it looks like a house, and then you come back and you think, where the heck do I go? And then you come out, and then it's a totally new area. So I think that's one of the coolest parts.
So you're like, did I miss something?
Right.
What's going on? Yeah, I think that's a very kind of intelligent, very smart way that the designers did that to make you kind of question, where am I going? And, I'm going to go backtrack and figure out where I should have went. And then when you go back to the door that you went through, you're in a completely different
area. So you know you went the right way.
Right.
And there's some really interesting looking enemies in here too. So
they have like the big statue.
The statues.
Judgment, it's called, and it just kind of stands still, but like shoots those rocks down. You got Pinhead, which is this weird looking snake enemy that can hit you really hard.
Don't mess with those too often. I figure at this time, you're pretty much leveled up pretty well. So.
You're not gonna get too much out of that, other than if you just want to. I fought like each of the enemies there, like maybe once or twice, just to kind of get a feel for them. You fight a few of them, They have some ones, the Pale Riders. Those are the ones that were tricky too. Like they look kind of like, I guess, like horses. I don't really know how to describe.
Yeah.
And they were tough. And then the Spriggans, which are really weird. They look kind of like big, like, I don't even know what to say, like just big, like Titan kind of characters. And they were silly. They kept trying to do this blinding attack on you that makes you can't cast spells, but it misses most of the time, thankfully. So then I just started smacking them with my cane. But anyways, once you go through all these different kind of crazy Alice in Wonderland areas, you get to a room with who else but Shannon's back again.
Yep, Shannon, here we go.
Yep, she gives you this weird item called the Dark Key, which basically lets you get into where Mammon is hanging out. So the cool thing is when you use that, you go to this weird little like outdoory kind of spacey area. So everything's like dark, but then there's like a strip of land that kind of goes up and wraps around. And when you get to the top of it, you see this giant, like floating demon-looking guy,
like huge giant demon. I don't know. Did we mention Brian's father that we do see him, and then he's just sitting there, kind of, and you don't really have any. You have like very little interaction with Brian's father, which I thought was weird. We'll get to when we kind of do our any reviews, but
we kind of wrap everything up.
But Mammon, he's just giant demon, basically.
And he basically spends several text boxes just laughing. He really was cracking up, saying about how we'd all fallen into his plan, and that him defeating us, he'll be able to go into the real world again, and saying that his gift to us will just be killing us quickly.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. That battle takes a while.
It does. Once again, if you're Earth, you have a heavy advantage here.
Yeah, you really smacks him around.
Yeah, so I was trying to beat the game here at this point, so I looked up what was some of the best things to beat him. Well, if you did choose Earth, you do have the easiest time because all you have to do is use your shields.
Yeah, magic barrier,
and then drop the avalanche on him, and it just does. It's like the barrier protects you basically against his moves.
And because
it's crazy.
And the sheer size of him, he gets hit with so much of that avalanche. Because he just can't avoid it. He's just too big.
Too big to avoid it. For me, he was the easiest boss of the final three that you were in the sequence.
I would have to agree. I faced him and again obviously used wind, so I used a lot of the large cutter spell, which would do about 100, and then some of his other ones would also work if I wanted to, like cutters, but I didn't really need to. I wasn't going to miss him with my other normal attacks. He's so gigantic. He has 2,300 hit points. Again, as you would expect, the last boss of the game would have the most. He does a couple of different attacks. He has this energy globe kind of thing that he does when he puts his hands kind of out, and that one I was never too worried about. It did a good amount of damage, but nothing too scary. He would do this like kind of series of those homing attacks, which would hit you like 10 times, but each for like 4, 5, 6, 7 damage, something like that. So, I mean, it adds up, and then the big attack that he does is this one where he throws out like these 3 different walls of like fire or lava out, and they kind of arc out. And actually, if it hits you, it does a ton of damage, but you can dodge it just by going in between the walls. So if you do that, it doesn't do you any damage, and basically as long as I realized I could dodge that, I started realizing I didn't have too much to worry about with him. And I had some healing items still. You get a lot of those spirit lights throughout this last stretch of the game. If you have any of those left over, those will give you all your hit points back and just keeps you in the fight. And eventually you just kind of wear him down, or if you Earth, or you can just absolutely destroy him. He doesn't have any element associated with him, which isn't that surprising. I suppose they probably don't want to give the last boss that to make him, stronger against one type than another. But yeah, if you have Earth or even Wind as one of your big ones, we had a pretty easy time taking him down. Just takes a little while, and then you get to see the ending of the game once you take him down.
Yeah. So that was the final boss, and then I'll just go over the ending sequence, just kind of reading it from Shannon. It's still kind of weird how it all makes sense, but basically Shannon goes, Mammon has been destroyed, but I'm still here. But why? Why was I not bound to Mammon for eternity? Master Brian, is this your doing? Deep inside me, I guess, I always knew that you would be triumphant. The life force that is human is much greater than the forces of evil could ever hope to attain. Mammon was always jealous of you. Jealous of you humans, overflowing with the power of life. I have made a decision. I want to learn more of your human ways. I am leaving Keltland in order to meet as many people as I can. Perhaps if I experience enough, I too may find my own humanity. Perhaps we will meet again, but until that time, you have my undying thanks. Farewell, Brian. That's the end of basically what Shannon says.
Right.
And then the end of the game, the text says, before Brian's eyes, peace had slipped farther and farther away, and the world of Mammon emerged. Mammon, driven by unprovoked jealousy, usurping the brightness and uniqueness of human life, but the sacredness of the life force can never belong to Mammon, and Mammon has been returned to the darkness from which it sprang. Only a few people know Keltland was saved from disaster by a young magician's apprentice. The people can now return to their peaceful daily lives. New towns rise from the ruins, completely reborn. Even those who were injured or hurt are made whole again. Once more, the people are blessed with the warmth of fire, the wind's caress, cool water, and the fruits of the earth. The world will prosper forever as long as people stay close to the four forces of nature and balance, and as long as they walk hand in hand. And that is it.
That's it.
That's Quest 64.
Yes. Quite a journey, that is for sure.
Yeah, I mean, wow. It wasn't a long game, but
right,
it's long enough.
Absolutely. And it's stretched out because we weren't able to play it in really in quick succession. We would play in chunks here and there to go through the game. So I think that made it feel longer too.
Yep.
But it is an interesting game in a lot of ways. It was kind of innovative, really.
It was
the way that it's designed. A lot of the the story of the game is very bare bones, which is fine. It's a lot more of kind of going forward, and where the innovations come more is from the gameplay, especially the combat system, using that whole grid system.
Anything you can think of, like goblins or gremlins or termites or temptress. I mean, they have so many different enemies you cross. And we're not going to list them all. You can look them up if you really want to see. But there are so many different cool-looking enemies, and I enjoyed that. I mean, there's some crazy ones, too.
You get some weird-looking ones, too.
Yeah, and we're not going to go through all the items because they're not really... I mean, a lot of them are just going to either, refill your MP, going to refill your hit points... they're gonna.
Some will increase attributes. There's certain things that'll increase your defense or how far you can move. Mm-hmm. There's certain items that I honestly never used during the game, like the replica item, which basically allows you to escape from a battle.
You can escape from battle. Yeah. I didn't use that one either.
So at the end of the game, you're gonna have a lot of items.
Yeah.
Now the healing ones, like you said, health ones, and getting back your magic points, your MP. Those are going to be the ones that are by far the most important.
Yeah.
But you're going to scroll through a lot of stuff and you'll be like, I still have this? So, you'll learn a lot about what items are really important and what items are just kind of fluff or just kind of fun to play around with sometimes.
Yep. Yeah, so, fun game. Very long. I mean, it can get... I don't want to say boring, but it can get a little repetitive because you're doing a lot of the same stuff. Grinding isn't necessarily fun all the time.
Right. When you're fighting a lot of the same enemies, especially in some of these dungeons where you can walk a few steps and get into a fight again, walk another few steps after a fight and get into another fight. Sometimes it can happen so quickly that it could get frustrating and can definitely get a little repetitive, a little tedious. The engine itself I enjoy. Sometimes I wish that I had had a chance to explore more and feel like the world was a little more open ended. I feel like it is, to a degree, you can go to a lot of different areas, but at the same time, it's pretty much a linear path as far as what you do in what order. There's a couple of cases with that forest earlier on, like the Glenwood one, where you can go there earlier or you can go there later. Places like Shamwood that are fun to kind of go out of your way to find. I wish there was more areas like that in the game, stuff that you can do out of order or stuff that you can have extra access to going, especially closer to the end of the game. I'm used to a lot of games, like a lot of RPGs, where once you get the ability to explore a lot of different areas, like some games it's an airship or something where you're flying or things like that, you can do a lot of things right at the end of the game before you end to really get a lot of extra stuff. This game didn't do that, which I understand too, because it's more of a straight shot with a couple of hidden things here and there, but not as much as I'm accustomed to in other kinds of games. So basically my rambling saying is that I wish they had put a little more secret stuff like that in the game. Secret areas that you could go to when you're close to the end of the game to kind of round things out. And so I think that would have been kind of cool, that I would have liked, because I love the way the game was designed. I love a lot of those aspects. In a way, I just wish there was more of it.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I agree. I think... Yeah. I mean, if you play Ocarina of Time and you play this, storyline-wise, it's not even close, okay?
Yeah.
It's very bare bones. It's bare bones in the storyline department, which...
Right. It gives you kind of the idea, going out to save the world.
It doesn't make or break the game, though. I don't think it does.
No.
I think there's enough... Yeah. You don't need... You can visualize the story kind of going on.
You know what the story is when you pop the cartridge in and you see the opening scenes and everything. It tells you everything pretty clearly.
Right.
It's still fun to go and talk to all the different characters in the game and everything. One thing that I thought was kind of funny about the game too is that every character you meet in the game, in the text box, it will tell you their name on the top. Even though the vast majority of these characters are characters you'll never talk to again. They have nothing, but yet I need to know that this person's name is Joseph or, Norm or whatever.
Right.
I thought that was kind of, in a way that's kind of cool, that they never reuse the same names, but they give every single character that you can talk to, whether it be somebody randomly out in, a cottage in the woods or just a little kid running around the castle. They all actually have individual names.
It is pretty cool that way. So let's go down the topics.
Absolutely.
Let's do replayability.
Yes.
What do you got on replayability out of 10?
So if I'm doing a list from 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest, I would actually give this probably a 6. I don't think that it would be a case where I would run back and forth through a lot of times, but I could see myself playing through it again and trying different elements. Since I did Wind and Water, I think it'd be interesting to try to do Fire as my primary one I didn't really touch at all, and then possibly trying to do Earth, trying to go through without doing Water, especially because of all that healing and seeing how much more of a challenge that could be. I think that would be the big replay for me, would be going through and just trying different elements.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 4. I just don't see it. I think when you beat the game, you've kind of... And especially with us, when you're a completionist, you kind of done it all. But yeah, I think if you're going to replay it, it's definitely choose the opposite elements and see what you get,
Yeah.
If you like grinding, if you're okay with that, you're going to like it more than I'm going to like it.
Sure.
So that's why I'm giving mine a 4.
Makes sense, yeah. It's a game you would, if you were going to replay, you would want to take some time off in between.
Yeah.
I would say,
it's repetitive. Yeah. It really is.
If I would see myself going through it again, I probably would revisit in a couple of years, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I'll ever play it again.
Sure.
But, I mean, maybe. I don't want to say never.
Yeah, exactly. You never know. But there's so many other games on the shelf there that I wouldn't be like, okay, I got to go back and play through this one again, before I say go back and play. Ocarina of Time or something like that.
Yeah, that one's, obviously. So I'll start the next one off, sound.
Sound, yes.
So I will say, a lot of the dungeon songs, some of them I really liked, and some of them I didn't like. Some I thought were annoying. So sometimes I didn't want to mute it, but I turned it down a little bit.
Sure.
So I'm going to say the sound was a 5. Okay. There's not a lot of sound.
There really isn't. There's no voices in the entire game.
Yes.
Basically, the sounds you're going to be hearing are the effects of attacks, and then the music and you walking up and down things, the click.
Yeah, that's really it. You'll hear if you open a door, you'll hear the door, but it's
kind of easy.
The
to
music
just
keeps replaying wherever area you're in. So I'm going to give the sound. I'm going to give it a 5.
5? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you giving?
I liked some of the music. I thought was pretty good. In some areas, they were, good. The sound effects were very much meh, whatever.
Yeah.
Like you said, the sound is something that is easy for me to almost forget because there was nothing too memorable in it. Mm-hmm. But there was nothing ever where I'm like, oh my gosh, you're killing me here. So I would say probably a 5 too.
5 too. Yeah.
Yeah. Average.
Yeah.
Not to the point where it'd be annoying me, but not to the point where I'm going to be finding myself humming the, Cole Hazard theme song later on.
Let's go to graphics. Obviously, you can start it. Yep.
Sure. Graphics I liked. Again, a lot of times it's hard for people to go back to these kinds of games in that era where everything was more 3D and a lot of that kind of polygon look and blocky.
Kinda, yeah.
So I think that looking standing the test of time. I still think it's visually appealing. Obviously, you're not going to compare it to today's stuff, where everything is so high in the graphic department. I would say, graphics-wise, I would give it a strong 7 for this time period. Mm-hmm. I think that what they do is really, really well done. They make some really cool scenes, but again, it's nothing that I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, you got to come look at this. This is so crazy.
Yeah.
You know? And again, the graphics won't hold up against stuff that you'll see today.
Yeah.
But in their own way, I kind of like that 3D look to things. I actually kind of find it kind of charming. It's almost like looking back to an old era of a sport or something and seeing how things have changed over time, but still looking back and fondly upon it,
Right.
So I would say a 7.
Yeah, with me, I mean, there was some really cool scenes. Yeah. Some really cool visuals in certain, like the Barragoon Tunnel had a really cool one, the Glencoe Forest. There were some really cool scenes. Even the final, the Mammon, is it the Floating Monastery or whatever? Yeah, that was really cool.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed that. A lot of it is very repetitive, though. Mm-hmm. Detail isn't... There's not a ton of detail, because you don't really need to, because it's just a straightforward game, kind of.
Right.
So I'll give it...
It's almost like part of the charm or the appeal of the game is in its simplicity and stuff.
Yes, it really is. I'm going to give it a 7 as well.
Yeah.
I can't give it any higher, because... It's so repetitive, but there's a lot of cool stuff into it, though. Some really cool visuals. Like I said, there's a few parts where I'm just like, I was blown away by how cool it looked. So,
yeah.
And keep in mind, this came out before Ocarina of Time, I believe, too.
This game came out, 1998, I think we said?
Yes, it did.
Which is crazy.
I'm pretty sure it came out before.
So we're talking 20 plus years ago.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think with graphics, I'm going to go 7.
Yeah.
Let's go storyline.
Storyline was, again, very bare bones, so I can't really give it too much, anything too high or too low, because what it does well. It just sets up kind of the classic story of, youth goes out to try to save the world from, evil. So I'm going to give it a 4. I don't think it was awful.
Yeah.
There just wasn't much to it.
Yeah.
Some of the characters in the game, I would have liked to see a little more improvement upon, knowing what makes them tick, not just be like, hey, I'm the boss in this area, I want to steal those gems you've been collecting, or hey, I'm your dad.
Yeah, pretty much.
You talk to him for about 20 seconds, and then you don't see him at the end of the game. It's like, what the fuck? What the
no, that's all right. It's okay.
So
we're uncensored.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like a lot more character development would have been nice. And when you're playing you're the character of Brian, who's again a silent protagonist, you know, kind of like Zelda, Link from the Zelda games, and Ryu from all the Breath of Fire games, things like that, where your character never actually talks. You don't see any dialogue boxes for your character. It puts you into that idea of really being able to identify with that character and like thinking that you are that character. So I understand why there wouldn't be as much that way. But a lot of the ancillary characters, it's almost like, who is this person that I'm fighting as a boss right now? Why am I fighting this person? And like when we got to the final stage, for instance, the final stretch where you face those 3 bosses, Guilty, King Beegis, and then Mammon, I literally thought Guilty was the last boss of the game when I fought.
Yeah.
And then I thought King Beegis was the last boss of the game.
Yep.
And then I'm like, oh no, it's Mammon. So just little things like that I wish that they would have elaborated more. You get so many different characters in the game that you can talk to, and they give you little side things, but they don't give you information that really paints the picture well. So the overall story idea, I don't mind as much. It's some of the dialogue is a little bit not as clear as I would like it, and just character development could have been improved. So I would say a 4 out of 10 is, and I'm maybe being a little generous in that, to be honest, but there's some things in the game that I really enjoyed, even within those parameters, with the flaws of it. I still like the little things where you could talk to so many different characters, and everyone had their own unique name, and all these little things that, in its own weird way, I thought was kind of charming.
Pretty
about
cool.
It. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with a 3. And when you know what, you got to give me more if you meet my dad. The whole game is about me looking for my dad.
That is a very good point.
And it's just like you get that one scene with him.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Exactly.
I feel kind of cheated by that. And then,
it's a little bit of a middle finger.
It really is. Your main thing, I feel like Shannon, or, she is the one that you're seeing throughout the whole game.
Right.
And she's the only one, really. So,
yeah. And then all of a sudden, hey, she's evil. Like, you need to make that a little more of a dramatic reveal, not just you walk in there and she's sitting next to some guy you're supposed to know that might be your brother.
Right. I just thought it was just very, I don't want to say half-assed. Yeah. But it was just plain. There was nothing, no emotion. Yeah. I didn't get attached to really anything.
Right. I never felt like, oh my gosh, like I hope they don't kill off this character, or because there really wasn't a lot of characters to kill off.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. No.
Exactly.
And when you're fighting bosses and you don't even know who the heck they're supposed to be.
You just hear like. When you go to the towns, you just hear about them through hearsay, and
they don't really give you names either. Most of the time, they're just like, "Oh yeah, there's this robber that's in the woods." And when you fight Solvaring, you're like, "Oh, is this the robber they were talking about?" I guess. I'm going 3 on storyline. I can understand.
I'll go with I'll start with the difficulty. The difficulty, it's not. I would say it's right in the middle. I would say it's like a 5 or a 6.
Sure.
We'll go 5.5.
Okay.
So I think it's difficult enough.
Yeah.
But what makes it not that difficult is you save your stats.
Right.
So it doesn't make it that difficult. So you can beat this game. You just keep playing and you'll beat it because you get more powerful as you go on. So.
And one of the issues that I was worried about at one point was that if I died to a boss that I used all my healing items, I wouldn't be able to get, more. But honestly, enemies drop healing items a lot of the time. You can find them in chests. You can get them from townspeople. Really, there's no finite amount of items that you can get because enemies will drop them. So I would agree. I think that the hardest part of this game sometimes is just navigating and knowing where you need to go, making sure you don't get lost.
Yep.
And making sure
that can be kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
And especially when you get turned around, you're going in circles. You waste a lot of time, especially in the beginning, because you don't. You're not used
you don't
to
realize
it.
all the little things like that.
I guess that could raise it up a little.
So
further,
that makes it
but
more. But then it's almost like, is it a question of difficulty or a question of just adding more of that repetitive tediousness to it? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I'm gonna give the game a 5 as far as difficulty goes.
Okay.
And my own kind of definition of the difficulty.
Yeah.
If I was talking about getting turned around and all stuff like that, it would definitely move it up. A point. But the battles themselves, individual fights usually aren't too big of a deal. It's a little bit of trial and error in some cases, and then the regular common fights, being able to escape from any fight really makes the game easier. Basically, you almost always get to go first, which is very helpful. and enemies can't really do anything about it. It's not like some RPGs where when you try to run away, there's a chance you can fail, and then an enemy gets a free turn on you. This one, as long as you're at that edge there and you're not in a boss fight, you're good to go.
You're good, yeah.
So yeah, I would say a 5.
5, yeah. All right, so let's do the overall, what we thought of the game out of a 10. Yeah, why don't you go first?
Sure. Overall, I'm going to give the game a kind of a strange value. I'm going to give it a 5.5 overall. Because it's hard for me to give it anything lower because I really did enjoy the experience of the game, even if there's a lot of like little flaws here and there. Just the gaming experience, the innovation compared to other RPGs and games that I've played in the past, and even seeing how it can inspire other games. There's another game on the N64 that's like called the Adian Chronicles: The First Mage, that was made by THQ, the same people who made this. And really has taken a lot of the things from this game and kind of brought it forward into a more in-depth kind of RPG experience on the N64. So that's seeing that go to that, and then playing this really has allowed me to appreciate some of those aspects that were introduced in this game that kind of got further refined in that game, even though that game actually was released before it was completely finished because the N64 games were pretty much not being developed for it at the time. But that's a whole nother story. I really enjoy it. I love just some of that blocky kind of nostalgic graphic-y goodness. Part of me actually doesn't really mind that the story wasn't all that in-depth in some areas. Other areas I would have liked to see more, especially like we were talking about Brian's dad and just some of the characters that we meet along the way, and making things a little more dramatic, allowing you to get a little more attached to characters. But the idea of, kid goes out, try to save his dad, save the world kind of thing, I'm fine with that.
Right.
I don't need it to be, 3 hours of cutscenes either.
True.
So,
true.
It depends. Just the way this game was done, I found this game to be a very fun kind of, streamlined experience into the world of action RPGs. So yeah. My basically way of saying that is I would say 5.5. I can't really give it lower because I enjoyed it too much.
Yes.
And I can't give it too much higher because of the flaws we've talked about.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm actually going to give the game a 6. I think it, and I ripped down the story.
Yeah.
But the game holds up because of the whole environment, the enemies, and what you have to do from town to town. And it's not that long of a game.
It isn't.
So I don't think it's that bad. I think it's very basic. It's very plain, but some of that actually works to its benefit.
I was going to say, it does it well. It has a certain kind of a charm to it that's based almost on some of those simplistic, unique kind of just feel to it.
Yeah, it's not so frustrating where I had to put it down and just
walk away,
play again.
Yeah,
it wasn't that bad.
Exactly.
I could keep coming back to it and keep going, and it was fun. It was fun to keep going further and further. And I thought the dungeon designs were really cool.
Yeah.
So
you get a very good blend of environments, and I think that one of the things that is nice about the game too that makes it so welcoming and welcoming and welcoming is that it's a forgiving game. If you make mistakes and you die, you get to keep your stance.
You can save what I like.
I mean,
there's
time before too where I was like, I need to get to a save point, and because I have to go somewhere, with the family or whatever, I got like 5 minutes, so I'm like, I'm just gonna get in a fight and let these guys kill me, because then I can go back to the save point
and then just
save it, keep all my progress,
keep all my stats. I'm fine.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. I think if you're looking for a appetizer to Ocarina of Time, this would be it.
This would be a good introduction. Yeah, absolutely.
And to go back to that, it came out actually only 5 months earlier than Ocarina of Time. So it did come out before Ocarina of Time.
Got you. Yeah, I was going to say this was a pretty early game in the lifespan of the N64.
Yep.
I'm not saying it was a launch game. I don't think it was.
No.
But it was not too far off.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So when I think of launch games, I think of like, obviously Super Mario 64, other games.
Right. Super Mario 64 was
that's
one
the
of the
big one that
ones,
jumps out to me.
Yeah,
I think Shadows of the Empire was.
Yeah, that was
my
one.
That
was actually, I think, a launch game. Actually,
I was.
Launch, right. Yep.
Yeah,
I do remember that. But I would. Yeah, I'm gonna go 6 out of 10 because I think there's a uniqueness to it.
Yeah.
And it's not as bad as everyone says. No. Definitely not. I was happy when granted I wanted more, but I was happy when I beat it, and
Exactly.
it wasn't a waste of time. I'm
And
glad I got it.
Absolutely, me
Yep.
too. I'm glad that we both have it and that we could go through
We can
it.
keep playing, and you know, like I said, it's a beginner's game in that sense of if you want to get into RPGs, this is a good way to do it.
Absolutely. This will give you a great introduction, and if you're looking for a game...
It's easy.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. It's an easy one that takes some of the more tedious other aspects of like equipment, you know, grinding for money, trying to figure out all this stuff, and does away with that. If you're looking for more games that are kind of in this, the one that jumps out to me, of course, I've mentioned it before, is the Alien Chronicles, the first Mage game for N64. It uses some similar aspects and then kind of further refines things and makes things a little more detailed. So if you like this game, but you want there to be kind of more depth to it, more other aspects to it, that game kind of takes this to the next level, so to speak. So if you like this game, I think you'll like that game too.
Yeah, I think we could definitely possibly review that game in the future.
I got it at home.
All right, so Travis has a
guide and everything.
Travis gives Quest 64 a 5.5 out of 10. I give it a 6.6 out of 10.
Yes.
So, you know, fair. But that was Quest 64.
Yes. So we finally got it.
We did it done. It took a while.
Yes.
But the game was done and it was reviewed.
Yes,
so.
And to any people out there waiting for it, we appreciate your patience.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So, so just want to give you a small sample of what's to come.
Yes.
We have Donkey Kong Country 2.
Yes.
We're going to be reviewing fairly soon.
Yes.
I would say maybe a couple months at most.
Absolutely. We've already beaten the main game, and now we're doing all of the extra hidden stuff in there to make sure that we get our 100%.
We got to get our 102%.
Oh,
now.
2%.
Yep, I think it goes up as the games go on.
Yes. So if everyone remembers, we did our Donkey Kong Country, the first one.
Review, that is up.
Yep.
Check it out. That's on our page. Definitely listen to that one because that's a very fun game, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're having a blast playing 2 as well.
And maybe we'll do 3 down the line, too.
Yes, we definitely...
Keep it going, you know?
I think we will. So we got Donkey Kong Country 2 coming up for a review, and we're also going to be doing...
Resident Evil.
Yes.
The director's cut.
The director's cut, yeah. Resident Evil, first survival horror game we're going to be reviewing.
Yep,
so.
on the PlayStation Classic, I believe we're both playing it, right?
Yes, we're both going to be playing it on PlayStation Classic. Obviously, I didn't ask what we played this game on, because it's only on one console. So.
Unless we have an emulator or something.
Right, an emulator.
Yeah,
right.
and in this case, we did not. We played it on the good old-fashioned 100% N64, yes.
All right, so that's what's coming up. Very exciting times. So, hope you enjoyed this review of Quest 64 on the Retro Review Crew.
Yes,
subscribe.
Yes.
Even though you're not going to get many notifications, you'll get them eventually.
But absolutely. Subscribe, like, tell your friends. You know, all that good stuff. And call your mother, she works.
I'm Hurls.
I'm Travis.
We'll see you for the next review.
Absolutely.